I was a kid, I had this irrational fear of our basement. But to be fair, it wasn't just my imagination. That place felt fundamentally wrong. Picture this: a huge unfinished basement, cold concrete floors, and a single flickering bulb that hummed constantly. In one corner, there was an old TV set up in front of a long, L-shaped couch. It was our gaming spot. Behind that couch stood a thick wooden support pillar, and just off to the side was the laundry room, a door that I absolutely hated walking past. I must have been around 7 or 8 when it happened. My dad was at work, my older brothers were out with friends, and my mom was upstairs, busy cooking dinner. Against my better judgment, I decided to go down to the basement and play some video games by myself. This was something I almost never did. I usually waited for my brothers to be there with me, for that feeling of safety in numbers. The basement door was one of those old, heavy wooden ones. It never stayed open. No matter how you propped it, it would always slowly creak shut behind you, sealing you off from the rest of the house. The sound of that latch clicking into place always made my heart race, like a timer starting on something terrible. So, there I was, sitting on the edge of the couch, gripping my controller so tight my knuckles were white. I was trying my best to ignore every little random creak and tap that echoed from the dark corners of the room. You know how it is in old houses most of the time. It was just the pipes settling or the water heater kicking on. But that day, something sounded different. It wasn't the usual clanking of metal. It was the distinct sound of something small, something light, falling and bouncing on the concrete floor. I immediately froze. I mashed the volume button on the TV remote, turning the game sound all the way down, and just listened. But there was nothing, just that oppressive silence, the kind that's so quiet it makes your ears ring. But that was almost worse. My imagination started running wild. After a minute that felt like an hour, my nerve broke. I dropped the controller, sprinted up the stairs, and burst into the kitchen. Gosh. I told my mom I'd heard something moving down there. She gave me that patient, calming smile that moms have. "Honey, it's just the house settling," she said, trying to soothe my frayed nerves. You know how this old place is. But she could see how scared I was. To prove there was nothing to worry about, she came downstairs with me. We walked over to that dreaded laundry room door. She swung it open, flipped on the light, and we both looked inside. Of course, no one was there, just the washer, the dryer, and some old boxes. I felt a little silly, but definitely relieved, for a little while at least. The feeling of dread came creeping back as evening set in. The sun went down, and the basement was now pitch black without the light on. I decided to go back down to keep playing my game, maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't a scaredy cat. As I got to the bottom of the stairs and flipped on that single buzzing bulb, my blood ran cold. That same laundry room door was open again. Just a crack, but it was definitely open. I knew for a fact my mom had closed it earlier. The air in the basement felt heavy and distinctly colder than before. I could hear the heater humming from inside the dark laundry room, but it sounded louder, more menacing than usual. I didn't dare go near that doorway. But at the same time, I couldn't just leave it open. The thought of something watching me from that sliver of darkness was unbearable. So I did what any terrified 7-year-old would do. I took a deep breath, gathered all my courage, and ran full speed across the room. I slammed the door shut with all my might. Tit echoed with a loud banging. Then I jumped back onto the far end of the couch, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I sat there, breathing heavily, feeling a small victory, and that's when I heard it, a man's voice, right behind me. It was soft, almost a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a knife. He said, "My God, how you've grown." I froze completely. It was that pure primal fear, the kind of stillness where your body refuses to move, where your brain just shuts down. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Slowly forcing every muscle to obey, I turned my head around and I saw him. Sitting in the dark corner of the L-shaped couch, at the far end of the basement, was a man. His skin was pale and waxy, his clothes were dirty and rumpled, and his head was leaned on one hand as he just stared at me. He smiled. It was a slow, tired, and deeply wrong smile. And then he spoke again, his voice still a quiet rasp. "Your mother doesn't let me see you anymore?" That's when the spell broke. I screamed. It wasn't a yell. It was a raw, animalistic shriek of pure terror. I scrambled off the couch and ran up the stairs so fast I nearly tripped and fell, tumbling all the way back down. I slammed the basement door shut, fumbled with the lock, and clicked it into place. My mom heard my scream and rushed over as I collapsed against the door, sobbing uncontrollably that there was a man was downstairs. The look on her face changed instantly. She went completely pale. She didn't question me. She didn't try to calm me down. She didn't even check the basement herself. She grabbed the phone and called the police immediately. When they arrived, several officers went down into the basement while we waited in the kitchen, huddled together. Out. It felt like they were down there for hours, though it was probably only 20 minutes. The silence from the kitchen was deafening. Then, one of the officers came back up. He spoke quietly, asking my mom to step aside. He asked her if she recognized the man they'd found hiding behind the laundry machines. He wasn't some random stranger, some monster my imagination had cooked up. He was a relative my mom had cut all contact with years and years ago, someone she thought had moved out of state and we'd never see again. He'd broken in through one of the small, ground-level basement windows and had been living down there. For how long? We never found out. Weeks? Months? He had been watching us, listening. We moved out within months. To this day, even as an adult, I can't stand being in a basement alone. And I will never, ever get used to the sound of a basement door slowly creaking shut on its own. It takes me right back to that cold concrete floor and that whispering voice in the dark. My cousin Andy's birthday always falls in mid-October. It's so close to Halloween that we always mix a little bit of spooky fun into his party. That year, the whole family was celebrating at his house. It was this big, old 2-story home with a fully finished basement, which, as you can imagine, was the perfect playground for a bunch of kids. Our game of choice? Hide and seek, and we played it nonstop. There were 4 of us cousins that day. Me, Andy, my older brother Chase, and another cousin. The house was a maze of hiding spots, hundreds of them. But my absolute favorite place to hide was always in the basement, inside a room my Aunt Melissa called her fashion room. Now, it wasn't designed to be scary, but it was filled from wall to wall with mannequins. Some were dressed up in old clothes, some weren't. Some were even missing their heads. And at night, with just a single dim light bulb glowing overhead, they looked almost alive. During one of the last rounds of the game, I decided to hide in that very room. My genius plan was to hide under a desk. I grabbed 2 blankets from the big ottoman in the main basement area. One was to cover myself, and the other, I cleverly tossed over a nearby mannequin to act as a decoy, to trick whoever found me into thinking that asterisk was my hiding spot. And it worked perfectly. From my little nook under the desk, I could see just enough of the room, all those silent plastic figures standing in their frozen poses. After what felt like a very long time, I finally heard my brother Chase shouting from upstairs. His voice was followed by a burst of laughter. The round was over. It must have found everyone else. I jumped up from my spot and scrambled outside to grab some food, completely forgetting about the 2 blankets I'd left behind in the basement. Later, that evening, after we had all eaten cake and pizza, it hit me. I'd left that blanket draped over the mannequin. Feeling a little guilty about making a mess, I headed back down to the basement to clean it up. As I walked into the fashion room, a chill ran down my spine. Something was wrong. The blanket was no longer on the mannequin I'd covered. It was now draped over something else entirely. At first, I just assumed it was another mannequin, but this one wasn't standing up like the others. It was sitting on the floor, hunched over, completely hidden under the blanket. And then it moved. It was a small shift, but it was undeniable. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear a faint sound. It was the sound of breathing, wet, slow, and uneven. My first thought, of course, was that one of my cousins was playing a prank on me. I even let out a nervous laugh. "All right, nice try," I said, my voice shaking a little. "You can come out now." But there was no response, just silence, punctuated by that awful, ragged breathing. My eyes drifted down to the floor, and that's when I saw them. Peeking out from under the edge of the blanket were bare feet. They weren't smooth, plastic mannequin feet. They were human. And they were dirty, caked in mud, like someone who had been walking barefoot outside for a long, long time. I didn't wait for another second. I bolted. I've never run so fast in my life. I flew up the stairs, screaming for my uncle, yelling that someone was in the basement. He and a few other family members immediately rushed down, while the rest of us, mostly the kids and my mom, gathered anxiously near the back door, ready to run if we had to. When my uncle and the others got down to the fashion room, the blanket was just lying in a heap on the floor. Whoever or whatever had been hiding under it was gone. The police were called, and they searched the entire property, but they never found anyone. Their best guess was that someone experiencing homelessness might have slipped in through an unlocked door during the chaos of the party, maybe just looking for food or a warm place to rest for a bit. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe it was just a scared person in the wrong place at the wrong time. But even after all these years, I can't shake that image from my mind. I can still see that hunched over shape, sitting completely motionless among those lifeless mannequins, breathing like it belonged there. It's a memory that has stuck with me, a little piece of real-life horror from a childhood game of hide-and-seek. Thanks so much for listening to my story. If you have any creepy experiences of your own, I'd love to read them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more. When I was 9, my cousins and I spent Christmas at my grandpa's old house in Idaho. It was one of those places that felt incredibly peaceful during the day. You had these wide open fields, tall, stoic pine trees, and a sky that just seemed to go on forever. It was beautiful. But when night fell, that whole feeling changed completely. The silence outside would become heavy, almost too quiet. And the house, no matter how warm and cozy it was inside, started to feel really isolated. Our favorite place to hang out was the basement. It was cluttered and a little musty, but it was our kingdom. That's where we came up with our favorite game, a really simple, kind of stupid game we called Monster. The rules were easy. 2 of us would hide somewhere in the basement with all the lights off. The other kids, the seekers, would have to come down with just a flashlight and try to find us. Meanwhile, the monsters would make weird, spooky noises from the darkness to build up the tension. If a seeker got too close, the monster would jump out, roar, and chase them back up the stairs. The top of the stairs was the safe zone. It was a dumb game, but for a bunch of kids, it always delivered a perfect thrill. That night, though, things went differently. We had just finished our first round. Everyone was laughing, our hearts were pounding, and we were all high on adrenaline, just typical kids trying to give each other a good scare. Then, it was time for round 2. This time, my cousin Kennedy and I were the seekers. We stood at the top of the basement stairs, counting down from 10, giggling and getting ourselves ready. When we opened the door, that familiar cold, damp air rushed up to meet us. The basement was pitch black, except for this one faint, silvery streak of moonlight filtering through a small, high-up window on the far wall. I took the first step down, holding the flashlight out like a weapon, trying to keep my feet from creaking on the old wooden steps. Kennedy was right behind me, her hand gripping the back of my shirt. I slowly scanned the room with the beam of my flashlight. The light flickered across the old ping-pong table, the lumpy couch with its faded floral pattern, and the empty laundry corner where my grandma used to fold clothes. Everything was perfectly still. But then, my light caught something. Shadow. It was just outside that little window. At first, I brushed it off. It was probably just the reflection of a tree branch swaying in the wind. Or maybe one of my cousins, Sam or Evan, had snuck outside to mess with us. But as I leaned in for a closer look, a chill went down my spine. The shadow wasn't moving like a reflection. It was standing perfectly still. It wasn't a shadow. It was a figure, shaped like a person, just standing there, motionless in the snow. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. "Do you see that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Kennedy leaned forward, following my gaze to the window. I watched her face in the dim light, and I saw all the color drain out of it. There was definitely someone outside, trying to sound braver than I felt. We called out softly, "Sam. Evan, is that you guys trying to scare us?" Just a second later, 2 figures jumped out from behind the ping-pong table, letting out loud, triumphant yells. It was Sam and Evan, both of them. That's when my stomach plummeted. If they were both inside, who was standing outside that window, we didn't even think. We just turned and ran. We flew up the stairs, our feet barely touching the steps, and burst back into the warm, bright living room. I quickly scanned the room. My grandpa was in his armchair reading, my aunt and uncle were talking on the couch, and all my other cousins were there. No one was missing. No one was outside. I didn't want to cause a panic, so I just mumbled something about needing a glass of water and tried to act normal. But I could see Kennedy was just as shaken as I was. She looked terrified. I pulled her aside into the kitchen and quietly told her what I'd seen, that it wasn't our cousins. She just nodded, her eyes wide and full of fear. After a few minutes, we convinced ourselves that maybe we had imagined it. We were already on edge from the game, right? We decided the only way to prove it was nothing was to go back down, but this time with everyone. We rounded up all the cousins, feeling braver in a group. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, one of my cousins reached over and flipped on the main basement light. The whole room was flooded with a harsh yellow glow, and that's when I saw something that made my skin crawl and my blood run cold. The small window, the same one where I'd seen the figure, was now cracked open. A dusting of snow was on the sill. And then I saw the chair. One of the old wooden dining chairs that had been stacked against the wall earlier was now pulled out into the middle of the room, and someone was sitting in it. A man. He looked middle-aged, and he was wearing a heavy winter jacket all zipped up. He was just sitting there, facing us. He was smiling. No one said a word. For what felt like an eternity, we all just stood there, frozen in disbelief and horror. Then, slowly, he began to stand up. That's when the spell broke. We screamed.
A collective,
blood-curdling scream. We scrambled over each other, clawing our way back up the stairs, and slammed the basement door shut, fumbling with the lock. We yelled for help, screaming that there was a man in the basement. My uncle, who happens to be a police officer, didn't hesitate. He ran to my grandpa's room, grabbed his handgun, and went down into the basement alone, telling us all to stay put. We waited upstairs, huddled together, listening. Those minutes were the longest, heaviest minutes of my life. The silence was deafening. Finally, he came back up. His face was pale, his expression grim. "There's no one down there," he said, his voice quiet and strained. The man was gone. But the basement window was now wide open, letting in a blast of freezing winter air. When they went outside to investigate, they found a single set of footprints in the fresh snow. They led from directly beneath the basement window and disappeared out toward the dark, dense woods at the edge of the property. Nothing was stolen. Nothing else was broken or out of place. But that night, none of us kids slept alone. We all piled into one room, needing the comfort of being together. And even now, all these years later, I can't shake that image from my head. Every time I walk past a basement or see a dark window at night, I remember that smile. That quiet, frozen smile, just watching us from the dark. Thanks for listening to my story. It's one that stuck with me my whole life. A reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't just in our imagination. If you have any similar experiences, I'd love to read them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there.